Hey guys, it's that time again. Today we're going to be talking about the 37th film in the Criterion Collection, which is Terry Gilliam's children's adventure film Time Bandits. But before we get started, I should address the elephant in the room. Terry Gilliam recently was interviewed, and he had some very insensitive and quite frankly idiotic comments about diversity in media and about the how society blames white men for everything. I'll just be upfront. I don't agree with Gilliam's opinions in any way whatsoever. I think he's being completely idiotic and insensitive and just horrible. um, but I am somewhat conflicted in the sense that I don't support his views in terms of politics and society. But his films, like the one we're talking about today, and then the other ones we'll be talking about in the collection, they're very important to me. They mean a lot to me, and they were sort of my gateway into Criterion. So I will be talking about his movies in however I feel about them, which is mostly in a positive sense. But if you personally are not okay with that, if you are not okay with me praising Gilliam's work as a director, and you just can't support him in any way, I completely understand that. That is 100% fine. Go about your business. But just let it be known I don't support Gilliam and his opinions on things, and quite frankly, he should just stop making movies and stop being interviewed because he's not going to change before he dies, let's be honest. Um, but to get on a more positive note, Time Bandits. So Time Bandits is this really fun, really visually interesting children's film, which follows this young boy named Kevin, who's obsessed with like history and imagination and play, while his parents are very much obsessed with like technology, almost in a like keeping up with the Joneses sense. But then one night, these group of little people, I believe they're officially dwarves in the film, but they just fall out of his closet and whisk him away on this adventure through time and space. They have this map through time, which they stole from the Supreme Being, who is essentially God, which does essentially make them angels. Um, and their whole plan is they're going to go through time and steal. Sorry, somebody's riding by. Oh, hell no. Okay. Sorry about that. Just somebody drove by with really loud music. So I'll just start. I'll start again. um, so essentially, these little people have stolen a map through time and space, so they can use it to travel back to all these historical periods and steal the most valuable items from those time periods. And they stole this map from the Supreme Being, who is essentially God, making them ostensibly angels. And so the rest of the movie is this grand adventure through time, meeting historical figures, cracking a lot of jokes, a lot of like goofiness, a lot of slapstick happening, just general almost Monty Python-esque humor that you would expect from someone like Gilliam. But in between all of that is this fantastical imagery, and that might be the best place to start. Honestly, is the imagery of the film is very Gilliam. It's very Gilliam-esque. Um, Everything is done in a very practical. All the effects are a lot of the effects are practical, and they're very exaggerated and just insane. There's so many beautiful shots and beautiful imagery in the film that really impressed me. And specifically, I think one of the most famous images of the film is of the boat that is attached to this guy's head, and he rises out of the water. You know, it's this crazy imagery. Um, and I think just the movie in general does a great job at capturing a sense of adventure and of like this childlike wonderment with the world. Whenever they travel back to these times, they do feel like they're time periods, but heightened. So like they meet Napoleon, and he is obsessed with his height, and specifically with other conquerors and rulers that were shorter than him. Or they meet like Robin Hood, and it's a very like the bandits are all like gross and mean and vile, and then Robin Hood himself is very like posh British, these heightened realities. But the movie rarely loses sight of its core audience, which I believe is children or those who can be young at heart. Um, and a prime example of that is in the villain, who is essentially the pure essence of evil incarnate. And he is just this wacky, technology obsessed, just crazy person that has some of the best jokes, some of the best lines, and some of the most creative imagery tied to him, specifically in the final battle, which essentially sees multiple armies from throughout time trying to defeat evil, and yet they're all unsuccessful ultimately. And the ways they're defeated are just absolutely insane. And I think the comedy also works. I think the humor is really solid. The only times in which it doesn't work is when they try to fit in adult humor, which doesn't quite land and feels, excuse me, the adult humor feels very out of place. For example, there are these side characters played by Shelley Duvall and Michael Palin, I want to say. And there's this running joke about him having, I believe, erectile dysfunction, and it just feels very awkward. It doesn't quite fit in with the rest of the movie, which is so childish, that is so full of wonderment, right? And I also think another issue with the film is pacing, which is a problem Gilliam always has, is with how to pace his movies, because he has so many ideas. He has to stuff them in all the time. So the movie, I think, goes on a little bit too long, and I think it drags in a lot of places, specifically in the final battle, which just feels like it goes on forever. I mean, it just keeps going and going, getting more and more crazy. And while it does lead to some of the best gags and some of the best imagery, it is ultimately a little much. But then I think, sort of to start winding down here, I really love the ending of the film, which is kind of dark and like existential. It's very odd. And in fact, the essay included with this Criterion edition, which was written by David Starrett, I hope I said his name right, touches on this and how Gilliam made an ending that is that doesn't talk down to kids, right? That sort of understands that they can attempt to process these larger themes and ideas, like our place in the universe, and sort of a depressing ending, right? And I think that is one of the strengths of Time Bandits, is the fact that it doesn't talk down to kids. It understands how fun and exciting this type of adventure is, and while it does have goofy elements and fantastical elements, it never feels like it's treating children as less intelligent, right? And I think it's one of Gilliam's strengths, is being able to make stuff that doesn't talk down to people, but rather he's a director that sort of trusts people to go along with him on this crazy journey he's envisioned. And if you want more of Gilliam, I don't know why you would, but if you want more of him, this edition has a lot of great special features for that. There's a commentary with him and a lot of the Monty Python alum. There's this great behind the scenes feature, interviewing the production designers and costume designers, talking about how they were able to create the look of Time Bandits, which is really fascinating. There's a conversation between Gilliam and scholar Peter von Bach, which is recorded at the Midnight Sun Film Festival, which is somewhat interesting, though again it's Gilliam talking, so might not be the best thing to watch. Overall, I think Time Bandits is a really good movie, really solid. As a Criterion release, it's a good one to own, especially if you are a Gilliam fan. Show it to your kids, see how they like it, see if they enjoy it. But yeah, that's been Time Bandits. The next review I'll be doing is for Tokyo Drifter, which I have a bit of a weird history with, so I'm excited to talk about that. But thank you all for watching, and hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.